So today we're going to be changing the brake fluid on a 2014 Sierra. I'm doing it by myself, and I don't feel like pumping brakes, loosening screws, pumping brakes, loosening screws, filling reservoirs. So I bought this Motive power bleeder. It's supposed to let you do it by yourself. I'll leave a link for the system. You could buy it on Amazon. It's not very expensive, and I think it's worth it. I'll show you everything it comes with here. So it's the little power bleeder, whatever compression tank, I would imagine, has a little threaded deal on the end that threads to the second part of it, which is this. This is the cap, and you pick your model truck or your year truck whenever you're purchasing this, and it gives you the correct cap that you need for it. It also comes with two little bottles for catching the old fluid and some little hangy things for hanging it up there so that it doesn't fall, and supposedly these tube tips will fit on the end of the bleeder deals. You have to get the old fluid out of this reservoir to begin, and you need something to put it in before you can put it back in the containers of the new brake fluid. Now, this particular model truck takes DOT 3 brake fluid. Specifically, if you get the newer DOT 3 brake fluid, supposedly it'll cause the brakes to squeak when you push them. I don't know. You could still buy this regular DOT 3 in AutoZone or O'Reilly. And it's cheap, and it comes in a quart. A few other things I purchased was this little siphon hose to get the fluid out of the reservoir to begin with, the old fluid. This little funnel in case I needed it for adding fluid into the pressure pump. Some shop towels for the mess I'm going to make. And I got 2 quarts of the brake fluid. Not sure how much I use. Some people say 1, some people say 1.5. It's really how much you want to flush through the system, but I got 2 in case. They're cheap anyways. So your steps to get this done would be kind of up to you. I'm gonna jack the truck up and take the wheel off just so that it's easy to show where the little outlet is for the brake fluid that you're going to hook your catch cans to. The first step we're going to do is we're going to get the old fluid out of the reservoir here. We're going to use our little deluxe siphon hose to get it out. We're going to put it in our Tony's Sacheries, Zatarans crawfish boil container for now, and we're going to pump some air into this reservoir with the pump just to check for leaks. All right, so I'm gonna set up my little canister. My siphon hose should reach it. Get it ready to go. Make sure this thing is cleaned up real nice. You don't want to get any junk in there. This bar, you could take it off if it gets in the way. I don't think it's gonna be in the way. Let's take this off nice and slow just in case there's some pressure. There shouldn't be, as long as nobody's pushing the brake pedal down, but you know, just for safety's sake. Now we need to put the siphon in and get out that old fluid and pump it. The neighbors are staring now. Okay, we're gonna siphon out the fluid out of the reservoir, the old fluid, and put it into this little container right here. We don't want to get any of this stuff on anything because, man, I'll tell you what, it's nasty. Once we get a little siphon going, it should all come out. You could also use a turkey baster for this. Pretty much anything that'll just get the little fluid out of here without causing any stuff to go in. You could see our fluids being drained out of here. Now the old fluid's not too dirty. I expect to see a little bit more dirty fluid come out of the ends of the brake calipers over there. I mean, it's old and nasty. It's 160,000 miles. Okay, so we got most of it out. Now you're gonna see that there's still some down here. This reservoir is separated in the middle here where the little pump goes and fits on. So I don't even know how I would get to this. I'm honestly not too worried about it. It's only a little bit of fluid. As long as you got everything out of the reservoir for the most part, and as you can see we do, then you're good enough. Let's take a look at what we took out of there. Yep, that's nasty, right? Yeah, we're gonna replace that. The first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna pressure test our cap and our reservoir. We wanna make sure that there's no leaks and that our cap and our pump are functioning correctly before we start putting fluid in the pump itself and pumping fluid into here to get the brakes flushed out. So we'll get the cap, we'll get the pump, we'll throw a little bit of pressure on there, and we'll make sure it doesn't leak. All right, so very easy. Little 9/16 adapter here. Hooks on your little cap, okay? Make that tight. I don't think you need any Teflon or anything. I mean, we're not getting crazy with this, although maybe later in this video you'll see me putting Teflon. Just for now though, let's not put Teflon. We're gonna attach this sucker to the reservoir and do a pressure test. All right, it'll screw on just like the cap does. Make sure it's tight. I'm going to make sure this is tight and closed. You have a pressure gauge on here. I was told not to go past about 10 or 12 because your cap could pop off. I'm gonna give it about 10 right now just to pressure test, and I'm gonna listen for leaks. It did end up leaking during the pressure test, so I Teflon the coupler and tightened it with a 9/16 wrench and a crescent wrench. It seemed to hold pressure just fine after that. All right, so my reservoir is holding pressure. My little tank is holding pressure at 10 psi. Since it is holding pressure good, I know everything's snug and secure. The next thing to do is to add a quart and a half of brake fluid to the little pump and get ready to pick this sucker up and take a wheel off. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna take my DOT3 fluid, get a foil cap opening tool. You really shouldn't be touching this with your hands. I am going to get some gloves when we do the rest of the work. I'm really just gonna pour a quart of this in here, just one whole quart of this. Oh man, that's so much cleaner than what we were taking out, right? Jeez, okay. I don't like this stuff spilling. It's cheap, but it's very corrosive to paint and God knows what to your hands. We have our pressure container. We have our fluid in it. Now we need to add fluid to the reservoir to the full position so that we could start pumping new fluid pressurized into it. That's where my funnel comes in, right? Let's just fill that up to the fill line, right in between min and max. Remember, this is new fluid. Give that a shake. Just clean that off. Cap, put it on. Make it tight. Make sure this is tight. Get to pumping. 10 psi, maybe 12. A lot more fluid's gonna go in once we crack that brake line up. Let's push it. We're gonna push it to 12. Right at about 13, 14 psi. We're gonna go down to the brake caliper, crack that seal. Hopefully fluid goes into the bottle. Hopefully dirty fluid. Let's find out. All right guys, before jacking up the truck, this is all bonus footage. You know how to do this, but I'm gonna put it here for anyone who may not know. Before you take your wheel off the ground, you're gonna wanna break those lug nuts so that your tire doesn't spin while you're trying to take them off. We're gonna just loosen them just enough to be broken to where they're easy to move, and then we're gonna jack the truck up and you'll be able to take the lug nuts off without straining and spinning the wheel. It'll be a lot easier. You'll thank me for this later. Be sure to use wheel wedges to block your vehicle so that it doesn't roll while you're working on it. I torque my wheel nuts every time I put them back on. Torque wrench isn't that expensive, so time to pick the truck up. So when I pick up the truck, just because of how I've always done it, maybe someone can correct me, I jack it from this point right here. I feel like it's the strongest part. It's the part that's closest to the ground, and haven't had any problems picking it up using that yet. You gotta get a floor jack if you don't have one. So we want to pick the truck up enough to get the wheel off of the ground, give it a little room underneath it, maybe a finger's size underneath it, so that you could safely take it on and off. Now that our jack is set up under there, I'm gonna place our jack stand under there as well, just as an extra safety measure. I'm gonna put it under the axle. That way I know it's sturdy. And literally just lifts up like that. It has a pin on the other side, and it kind of ratchets up. And once it's ratcheted up, this truck isn't heavy enough to knock it down. So I'm gonna leave both of those things there. This is a safety backup. This is what's holding the truck up right now. We have our block chalked in the front to prevent it from rolling. Let's get the wheel off. Nice and easy. Wheel is off. Let's see what we could see now with these little brake lines. This little rubbery grommet here, that's what we're looking for. That's what we need to hook our catch can to so that we could bleed this brake line. So these little things are threaded. They're threaded. Let me get a flashlight in there for you so I could show you what part you have to loosen. There it is. So you see the nut looking thing here, little nut, that's what we're going to loosen to let the brake fluid come through. 10 millimeter metric. Let's get the bottle, hook that sucker up. Put the wrench out, hook the nipple on, and put the wrench back on. Our bottle, we need to be able to see it. We need to see when dirty fluid's coming out and when clean fluid's going in. I think that's the reason they put this bolt here specifically. We're gonna hang this. We don't wanna hang it too much because I really don't want it to pop off of that thing. There's our bottle. We're hooked to the brake. Let's see if we can get some fluid to come out of this thing. It's loosening up. Well, I hope that doesn't pop off. There it is. Oh, Jesus, that's nasty. Yeah, that's pretty disgusting. I'm kind of ashamed I took this long to flush this fluid. Okay. There it goes. Honestly, it's already looking a lot clearer. I think that's why they say you really only need like 1 quart or half a quart of fluid. I'm in no hurry, so I'm not gonna crack this thing open too much more. I'm watching this fluid. Oh man, I can't believe I waited this long to do this. This is supposed to be an easy thing. You're supposed to be able to do this, you know, easily. And every, I don't know, it was 30 or 60,000 miles. Regardless, I'm at 160,000. Honestly, that looks pretty clean. I'm gonna close this and let's go check on it under the hood and see how much fluid we used out of our can. Okay, so it's back to tight. That's how much I took out. Let's go find out what our canister looks like. Okay, it's definitely putting fluid in the container. That's a good thing. Our PSI is almost down to 10, so I know we're actually moving fluid through it, which we could see that. So I think we're gonna take it off and call that one good. We'll put the wheel back on. We'll take the other wheel off, jack it up, and do the other backside. I believe you should probably do the furthest one first, then second to furthest. So I recommend doing rear passenger, rear driver, front passenger, front driver, in that order. I don't think it makes that much of a difference. If you want to be thorough, that's my suggestion. So you can see we still have a little fluid in the hose. We're gonna pull the hose off with the towel around it like that. Give it a little wipe. We don't want to spill. Pick this hose up so that everything drains into there. I'm going to leave it connected for now. Remove our wrench. Very important. Put your cover back on like that. Now we're ready to put the wheel back on. Let's get our little dirty brake fluid. God, dog. Yeah, it's embarrassing. All right, we'll get the wheel back on. Okay, I'm going to bore some of you guys with putting the wheel back on this truck. I feel better if I showed the whole process for safety's sake. Some folks wouldn't want to admit that they haven't taken the wheel off of their car before. So I'm just going to go through the steps just for the sake of being thorough and how I do it. Roll this wheel back. Try to line up the lug nuts with the holes. Try not to put your legs or feet under the wheel because you don't want that to fall on you. Line it up. I use my feet, push it on, grab a lug nut. We're just putting them on there enough just to keep the wheel from falling off, okay? Then we're gonna move out of the way and put them on with the wrench. In fact, I'm gonna get out from under it now. Safety first. Let's get the rest of these lugs on. Hand tight. Don't forget to give the wheel a little push when you're getting them on there. It'll settle in when you start using the breaker bar and the torque wrench. Get the most you can get out of it just by hand. Give it some wiggles. Wiggles. Wiggles hand tight. Wiggles hand tight. That's it. Okay. We're gonna give her a little bit of wrench tight before we drop the jack. I don't like to have it wobbles a little bit, so I'm gonna give it wrench tight. I'm just saying the weight of the wrench plus a little tippy tap, okay? Weight of the wrench, tippy tap. Now we're gonna drop the jack, get the torque wrench, and get these suckers torqued. We have to first move the jack stand. To do that, we gotta pull the pin. Get it out of there. Lift up the lever, if you can. So there's pressure on it now, so we're gonna have to jack it up a little bit. Take the pressure off the jack stand so that we could drop it. Move it out of the way. Now, with everything out of the way, yourself, your body parts, any tools, your blanket you use not to scratch your dainty little knees, everything out of the way, we're gonna drop it down very slowly. This particular jack, you loosen this very, very slowly. Now we're down. Move the jack out of the way, get the torque wrench. We're gonna torque this sucker. All right guys, torque wrench 101. Look up the torque specs for your vehicle. Mine's a 2014 Sierra. It's 140 foot-pounds per square inch. I have a torque wrench, 150 limit. I'm gonna show you how to set this thing to 140 so we can get this lug nuts torqued up to the right spec. Take your torque wrench. This is the manual kind. This is not some fancy kind. This is manual. You have to turn a little handle thing and all that stuff, okay? It's not digital, and it's also not the ones that the old mechanics would probably tell you are the better ones, which is the little swingy arm ones. This works just fine for me. Settings on this thing. I don't know if you could see this. You loosen the nut and you screw it in to get to the closest thing to your torque specs. There's a 140 on here, so we're gonna go all the way to the 140. We're gonna screw it in tight until it's even with 140. Now when it gets even with 140, your next big line on the handle here is your tenths. 140 with 0 means this is exactly 140 foot-pounds of torque. Tighten this up so your handle doesn't move. Now we gotta get our socket. We're putting these back on, so make sure your wrench is set correctly. We'll do these in a cross pattern. The way this torque wrench works is it's gonna tighten up. When it gets to 140, it's gonna click. You'll hear it, you'll feel it. Let's start with this one. $140, cross over. 140, cross over. That's it. And you just do this until you got them all at 140. After you got them all, give them each a click 140 check. Yeah. Torque wrench 101. Get a torque wrench. Torque your lug bolts for peace of mind and just to feel important. I like you know what you're doing. We're gonna move over to the other backside. I'm not gonna bore you with removing the wheel. We're gonna go straight to bleeding. All right, so we're all hooked up on that side. Now we have to add more pressure back to our pump so that we can push some more dirty fluid out and some more clean fluid in. I'm gonna check the amount of fluid we have in the canister. Looks pretty good. I mean, that's a lot considering. So let's get the pressure back up to about 14, 15. There it is. Let's go crack it. We're still at the max level, so that's good. That's what we want. Our PSI, almost at 10. That's where we were last time when we stopped. That's another good one. We'll go put the wheel back on and do the first front one. For this, we could leave the chock still in the front. My truck is on a slope this way slightly, so that'll prevent it from rolling. We'll have to move the chock, of course, when we take off that wheel. That's next. So let's get this one jacked up. Now for this one, I jack it up in a little bit different place, not so close to the wheel. I've had success with this. I don't know if this is where you're supposed to go. It's very hard for me to find documentation on where to do it. I'm going right under into this steel right here. Frame, I don't know what you call it, but that thing. Now remember, we have to break the lug nuts so that our wheel doesn't spin before we jack this thing up off the ground. Let's get this wheel off, see what's behind it. Nozzle's easy to get to on this one. It's right up here at the top. Man, how cool is that? That's close. Get our 10mm wrench, our bleeder bottle, get it hooked up. Let's get some new fluid going in there. Theoretically, this is gonna bleed a lot quicker because it's closer to the reservoir. That makes sense to me, but I guess let's find out. Let's connect this somewhere where it'll hold our bottle up. I'm gonna say not there. I'm gonna go here, I think. Yeah, that's good enough, huh? Connect this little hose Put your wrench on. Let's go check the bottle just to be sure we have pressure. I can see it from here. It looks good. Let's get to bleeding. Oh, yeah, that's not very dirty at all, is it? Well, we're gonna let some go through anyway, just to be thorough. We got 2 bottles. Okay, I say that's good. Let's tighten it back up. Get our little towel. Disconnect the hose. Give it a wipe. Unhook our bottle. Clean off this little nozzle. Yeah, just want to double check this. Oh yeah, okay, good. That's tight. Let's get it back on. Okay, now we should be able to put this wheel back on and move over to the next one. I lost power to my mic, but I'll do my best to explain to you what's going on and what you're seeing here. Now that we're done adding fluid to the brake system, we need to drain the remaining fluid out of the hose and the container, but we also have a problem where we have too much fluid in the reservoir. So we're going to disconnect the reservoir and the bottle. We're going to remove the remaining fluid that's in the bottle, put it back into the original container. Then we're going to reattach the bottle and pressurize it so that we could push some of that fluid that's in the reservoir out through the brake line like we did when we initially put new fluid in. An easier option would be just to suck the extra fluid out with the turkey baster or your siphon, but I figured since I had the wheel off, I would just reattach the pump and push some more clean fluid through the brake system through that last brake that I had taken off. To do this, I reattached the pump after all the fluid was drained out of it, secured my cap, added a little bit of pressure to it, went down to the brake line, loosened it, and let a little bit more fluid come through to the catch can. While the fluid was draining, I watched the reservoir. Once it got down to under the max level, I closed the valve, removed my little hose, drained all the remaining fluid into the catch can, and replace the dust cover grommet back on the valve. I slowly released the pressure back out of the reservoir and made sure the level stayed under the max level. Removed my hose from the reservoir. Cleaned the top to make sure that no debris gets back into the reservoir. Replaced the lid, make sure that it was tight. Check to make sure my reservoir was staying under max, and then put the wheel back on. Okay, I lost my mic battery, so sound quality might be a little off. But what I wanted to show you before we were done is what this brake fluid looks like. This is the old one, and you saw the new one. It's pretty much clear. It's over some white cement. It's 160,000 miles. I would probably recommend doing this every time you change the brake pads, because changing brake pads is fun anyway, and you might as well do this while you have the wheels off. So just for gigs, I poured in some of the unused fluid so you can see the difference in what it looks like, new versus used. This is new fluid with a little bit of crab boil seasoning in it, but that's much different. We're going to get in the truck, we're going to start it up. I want to make sure that fluid level stays the same. I might want to touch the brakes a little bit just to see what happens. Let's find out. My God, this thing started so fast. Now it says brake on the dash. It just means that the brake is still on. So push it all the way down, let it pop back up. Brake light gone. Let's push the brakes. Ah, stiff. I like it. Let's go check the reservoir. Very nice. Still showing full. There's only one thing left to do. Back up in the driveway. Let's mount the Stallion and see if it stops. Seat belt. It stops. Go a little further. It stops. I say we take this bad boy for a road test. Yeah, the road is calling. Well, that's it. That was a complete brake fluid flush, a 2014 Sierra GMC. You can probably get away with 1 quart of fluid. It's cheap. Buy 2. Make sure it's whatever dot it says on top of your brake fluid cap. It'll tell you .3, .4, .3 or 4, and sometimes .5, but I don't think it's going to be a synthetic-ish or silicone, whatever it is, for a 2014. So buy 2 things of fluid, buy a funnel, get the pump system so you don't need somebody to help you pump brakes and get air in the line. I mean, you'll be wasting fluid then for sure. Get the system. You could reuse it. Do all your friends' brakes. I can't wait to go do all my friends' brakes. I'm gonna go buy all of the different brake fluids so that I can just randomly do brake flushes till I find something else to do with myself. Goodbye for now. I can't find the button to stop the damn camera.